Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News on Shri FM. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Kasmi 107.1 FM and across the world at 3news.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. November 7 recall of Parliament could be in jeopardy following yet another suit seeking to prevent Speaker from reconvening the House over the vacant seat controversy. Meanwhile, renowned legal practitioner Chachu Chikata describes as unsatisfactory the ruling of the Supreme Court on the matter.
PNC, and in which the PNC had worrying signals. When you look at the ruling that the court gave, I mean, certain obvious and critical factors were simply left out of the equation. You quoted the passage in which the Chief Justice talked about Article 99 of the Constitution, which gives the High Court powers in respect of the invalidation of parliamentary elections.
And we'll bring you more of that in that interview on Agenda last night on TV3. Also, latest Auditor General's report says gaping holes in disbursement of funds to the school feeding secretariat is hampering the provision of meals to basic school pupils. And later on the program, in the package this afternoon, Election Day in America, as Democratic candidate Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump go head-to-head in a tightly contested race. Thank you very much for joining us today. Now, the recall of Parliament could possibly be in jeopardy following yet another suit at the High Court seeking to prevent the Speaker, Alban Bagbin, from recalling the legislature over the vacant seat saga. South Dine MP Roxy Nelson Dafiamapo has dragged the Speaker to the High Court, praying the court to affirm the declaration of the 4 seats as vacant. He wants Parliament injuncted from a recall until the final determination of the suit by the Supreme Court. And let's bring you a bit more from the suit and the reliefs being sought by Dafiamapo. Dennis Peperiwedam is in the studio with me. Dennis, really, what is Dafiamapo's reason to go into court, especially when somebody has already been to the High Court on the same matter?
Well, so this is the second suit of its kind. You recall last week there was a suit by one Benjamin Tete, also seeking similar reliefs as the Member of Parliament for the North Dye constituency is seeking in this particular suit. Now, his reliefs are simple. That's the 4 seats which were declared vacant by the Speaker of Parliament, that declaration be affirmed. Now, mind you, he has gone to the High Court, and remember there's been this conversation as to whether it is the High Court or the Supreme Court that has jurisdiction to make a determination as to whether a seat has become vacant or not.
Well, the CJ said is the Supreme Court.
Well, having explored the Supreme Courts, now others have gone to the High Court. This is the second of the suits to go to the High Court. Now, he's asking that a declaration confirming the vacancy of the parliamentary seats, mentioning the 4 MPs in question, Mr. Andrew Amakwa Esiema, Member of Parliament for Fomina, Cynthia Mamle Morrison, Member of Parliament for Aguna West, Mr. Kojo Asante, Member of Parliament for Suhum, and then Mr. Peter Yao Kwachi Aka, Member of Parliament for Memphis Central, that the ruling that was made on the 17th of October by the Speaker be affirmed. And that's the declaration. Now he goes on to indicate what each of these persons have done for which reason their seats were declared vacant. So in the case of the Fomina MP, who we know is an independent candidate in Parliament now, he has filed forms with the EC to contest the upcoming election as an MPP parliamentary candidate. To that extent, he says that the seat should be declared vacant in accordance with Article 99(1). So
we should uphold the ruling of the Speaker on the floor of Parliament.
Yes. So a similar thing applies to the other 3 MPs, except that in their case, in the case of Cynthia Morrison and then the Suhum MP, Mr. Kojo Asante, they are MPP MPs who intend to go independent. And then in the case of Mr. Peter Yao Kwachi Aka, he's an NDC MP who intends to go on as an independent candidate too. So he's seeking the court to declare that their seats are indeed vacant, as was declared by the Speaker. He goes on to also say that any composition of Parliament in which has these MPs.
So you're going into the detailed reliefs now?
I mean, so that what I read first was the first set of reliefs, declare the seat vacant. Then he comes to say that any composition of Parliament with these MPs in there should be deemed unlawful. He flows from that to say that now, as long as there's a question pending as to whether the seats are vacant or not at the Supreme Court, mind you, the substantive matter is still before the Supreme Court. There are also questions before the High Court to be answered with respect to the vacancy of the seats. He says that as long as those questions continue to be pending, then Parliament should not be recalled. And that's where it now puts Parliament reconvening into jeopardy as to whether or not indeed Parliament will yield to this particular suit if they've been properly served. He also continues to indicate that the MPs, the said MPs, should be restricted from having access to Parliament. And in this regard, he's asking the court to direct the Speaker of Parliament to remove the MPs from Parliament. So basically, these are the key reliefs that the Member of Parliament for North Dai constituency, Roxanne Nelson Dafemako, is seeking from the High Court.
Thank you very much, Dennis Wedam Pwaberi. And we'll be speaking to Mr. Dafemako very shortly. But ahead of that, with less than 5 weeks to the December 7 polls, the National Peace Council is urging Ghanaians to reject any rhetoric or actions that could destabilize the country. Addressing the 5th Stakeholders Forum on Peaceful Elections, the Council Chair, Reverend Dr. Ernest Adu emphasized that the power of words and actions cannot be underestimated. They can either foster peace and unity or incite discord and violence. And Noble Crosby Annan is there. He'll be joining us very shortly. And you're still here on the Midday News on Sri FM 92.7. We'll be connecting with our correspondent, Noble Crosby Annan, who is at that program where the Peace Council is making some points ahead of the December 7 general election. But let's listen to the chairman, Reverend Ernest Adu, speak earlier.
We have a broader effort to prevent vigilantism and electoral violence. This is to promote trust among political actors and institutions, including political parties, the EFRA Commission, the Ghana Police Service, and the judiciary. We hope to create an environment where citizens will feel safe and secure, both during and after the elections. This dialogue will also serve to raise awareness about the Vigilantism and Related Offences Act 2019 Act 999, which is a critical tool in our effort to promote communities from the threat of violence. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we approach the 2024 elections, I would like to take this opportunity to call on all Ghanaians to reject any actions or rhetoric that threatens our peace.
And you heard the chairman of the National Peace Council, Reverend Dr. Ernest Adu. Noble Crosby Annan is there. He joins us live on the line. Noble, beyond what we heard Reverend say, what more can you tell us?
Well, this is an event that has brought together almost all the political parties in the country, as well as some other stakeholders. The police service is represented here. The electoral commission is also here. Some election observers are also here partaking in the discussions. Reverend Ernest Adu JMP has been talking about the need for peace going into the 2024 general elections. We're talking about the need to ensure that vigilantism is not repeated, and the number of deaths or chaos that we experienced in the previous election, we do not experience the same this time around. Essentially highlighting the importance of peace, a peaceful electoral process. Beyond that, had Reverend Ibn Chambers, also Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers, who is a former UN Special Representative, also talking, and he is asking Ghana to build on its achievements. So, saying that the Electoral Commission should not rest with the success it may have obtained in the 2020 elections. He's saying that that is not a guarantee that the 2024 elections will also follow the same suit. So the Electoral Commission, as well as all the parties and the stakeholders involved in the elections, should ensure that they build on the gains in the 2020 elections.
Thank you very much, Noble Crosby Annan, reporting live from that program where the Peace Council is urging for peace ahead of this year's general election. Staying on politics, and the flag bearer of the NDC, John Mahama, has outlined plans to revisit the construction of a bridge over the Oti River in Dambai, following the breakdown of many of the ferries in that enclave. Transportation across the river has affected businesses and livelihood. Speaking exclusively to Komla Klucher, John Mahama accused the government of not maintaining the ferries that are major means of transportation on the river.
One last few things about
And we'll bring you that sound of the former president shortly. But Komla Klucher is our man. Following him, he joins us live on the line. Komla, what more can you tell us, really, from that exclusive conversation you had with the former president?
Beatrice, I can tell you emphatically that John Mahama is worried about the transportation on the Volta River. If you look at this particular enclave from the OT side to the front plain side through down towards the Pando area, most of the ferries are not working. A case in point is the one in the front plains, which has actually been down now for almost a year. And also the one on the Oti River is equally down. In speaking with us yesterday, John Mahama expressed, dissatisfaction about the fact that government has not been able to man up to maintaining these ferries, which is a major mode of transport for the people to and fro the river. And so he indicated that, yes, of course, there was a plan to put a bridge across the Oti River. They will have to revisit that and look at the feasibility of it, also looking at how much funds they have in the coffers if it comes back to power. But let's listen to John Mahama speak to me in Dambai yesterday.
Komla, what more can you tell us as regards the itinerary of the former president?
So John Mahama is in Basa now. He just concluded a meeting with the Krachiwa, who is a very good friend of his, who has been touting a lot of things that he has said with respect to the projects that he has done for the Krachi community in the past. And both the Krachi East and the West constituencies, he's urging him on to remain focused. But one of the things that he's been asking for us to do with the power issues in that enclave. He has made a promise of giving them a substation if he comes back to power. This will not be the first time. In fact, during the Building Ghana tour, he made the same point. And yesterday, we equally experienced how bad the issue of light is. But he's also been talking about the general Dunso situation in the country, where he said so almost 2 billion is owed the gas suppliers, which the situation has become dire in the country. If you have that clip, we can play it.
Thank you very much, Komla Klucher. Let's listen to the former president, John Mahama, speak on that power issue.
ne omo ye ne say omo kremu kakra so mo nim say NDC na eba na dum so a omo de aba no dum so foforo omo de aba yi na omo apia ahye NDC so me no mo ka say enfidia especially nya omo free amanone a omo ye yiram kanea e wo Ghana ha e car enne ye di omo e yakọ $2 billion and yes it is almost $2 billion and omo de car enti omo manage car me kakra January 7th NDC aban for bar you say hey ene muso munje so make a check Ghana for say me and Papa NDC no credit for.
You heard former President John Mahama and flag bearer of the opposition NDC making promises about dealing with the challenges within the power sector. Now, Imani Ghana has described most campaign promises by three major political parties, the New Patriotic Party, the National Democratic Congress, and the Movement for Change as non-quantifiable. Speaking at Manifesto 2024, Senior Research Associate at Imani Center for Policy and Education, Dennis Sari, explained that most promises by these parties, especially those bordering on the economy and job creation, are vague and do not provide specificity. Judith Brown is there. She joins us live on the line. Judith, can you tell us the main factors Imani Ghana focused on as regards, its analysis? Hello, Judith. Okay, we seem to have a challenge with the line to Judith Brown. Would reconnect that and bring the conversation to you. Let's try again and see whether we can get Judith Brown. Judith, if you can hear me, are you on the line with us?
Right, Beatrice, I'm here.
Great. I was asking you to tell us more about particularly the factors Imani Africa is using to conclude as it did.
Right, and so basically they are focusing on 4 main areas, the economy, governance, energy and infrastructure, as well as education and social services. Now, you realize from their findings or analysis for each party, the analysis all variables, as earlier mentioned, had more promises passing on as non-quantifiable. And basically that means that these promises are mostly vague. And just to bother on the economy, for instance, out of 347 promises made by the NDC, 231 of them were non-quantifiable. For the NPP, out of 261, of their economic promises, 216 were also non-quantifiable. And for the movement of change, 147 promises were non-quantifiable out of 178 economic promises. And so that's just based on the economic aspect as per the analysis. And so clearly, that particular variable seemed to cut across as non-quantifiable for all these parties. And they basically focus on the NDC, the MPP, and the Movement for Change. For instance, he mentioned particularly that most of the parties have not been specific about their tax incentives with regards to their policies, and there are many other challenges that they mention as regards to these policies by all these parties. So basically, they believe that the policies by these parties, most of them are vague. They do not. They are too general, and they do not provide any specificity. Beatrice.
Thank you very much, Judith Brown, for bringing us the latest from the Imani Ghana program. Now, academic enrollment in some rural public schools in northern Ghana is experiencing a steep decline because school feeding caterers apparently do not cook for the pupils. Stanley Nibleo reports that caterers make pupils in some areas bring firewood and water to school before they can cook for them. Listen to a bit of that report.
Of the educational reform under former President John Agyekum Kufuor's administration in 2005. The project was designed to provide food to pupils in lower primary levels to improve enrollment and retention. Although the program has been expanded to cover more schools and pupils, especially in rural communities, the targets are not being achieved in some beneficiary schools. Caterers contracted by the School Feeding Secretariat under the auspices of the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection to cook for the pupils do not fulfill their part of the engagement, resulting in mass absenteeism in some beneficiary schools. The situation is common in the 5 regions of the north. The Kandigi Primary School in the East District of the Upper West region is one of such schools. The school's enrollment shot up from 69 to 160 in a year after it was included in the school feeding program. Now, enrollment has declined to less than 30 because the feeding has been irregular.
When I came, I met the 69 people. So they complained that there wasn't any food for the children. I wrote to the district assembly if they could help me get school feeding. So fortunately, I was able to acquire that for them. So when I acquired the feeding, they started feeding and the enrollment started increasing. But the cook, the caterer, she was the problem, another challenge. So whenever she stopped cooking, you see the people drop out of school.
I requested to speak to the caterer, but the teachers claim she's not known to them. Pupils in schools in the Pandai district of the northern region, benefiting from the school feeding program, are facing similar challenges. At the Blajai and Leseni primary schools, pupils are compelled to bring water and firewood to school before food is cooked and served to them.
Stanley Nibleo filed that report for us. Meanwhile, the latest Auditor General's report has identified gaping holes in the disbursement of funds to the School Feeding Secretariat, hampering the provision of meals to basic school pupils. The school feeding program, since its rollout, provides a hot meal a day to basic school pupils across the country. While the quality and consistency of food provided in recent years, however, have hit a snag with continuous delays in release of funds and intermittent strikes by the school feeding caterers. Let me just bring you some more. According to the Auditor General's report, non-payment impact irregularity apparently negatively affected the operation of the school feeding program and the livelihood of the caterers involved. Also, Gender Ministry has encumbered outstanding 166 plus million cedis to be utilized to contract kitchens in all the schools across the country. We, however, noted, and that's the 2023 common funds, the Auditor General saying that we have noted that the Ministry of Finance issued release letters amounting to over 2 billion Ghana cedis for the common fund allocations for the first 3 quarters of 2023 to the administrator, but these funds were not received as at December 31, 2023. So here on the Midday News on Shuri FM 92.7, this is your Election Command Center. And it's the final day of voting in the U.S. and in a matter of hours, millions of Americans will head out to choose who could succeed President Joe Biden in the White House. As of Monday, the AP reports roughly suggested that 82 million Americans had already cast their ballot via mail or early in-person voting, many of which ended on November 3. Now, the two front-runners, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, held final campaign rallies last night. Harris ended her campaign in Pennsylvania, one of the states with one of the largest electoral votes, about 19 of them, while Trump spoke in Michigan. Meanwhile, African immigrants are making their voices heard in today's election in the U.S., recognizing that their vote could have significant impact both for the African continent and its diaspora. This fast-growing community has engaged deeply with key election issues and has been active in encouraging eligible immigrant voters to participate. And we'll be having a conversation with Professor Enoch Enchi, who joins us in the studio. We'll be having that conversation very shortly. But first, my colleague Dela Michelle recently spoke with a Ghanaian immigrant to gain insight into the perspectives driving this community's involvement.
Are far higher quality than Crooked Joe or Lion Cameron.
Are we ready to vote? Are we ready to win?
The U.S. 2024 elections has said to be one of the tightest races ever experienced in the country. With just a few hours to the polls, candidates on both sides are bringing their campaign messages to an end.
We have an opportunity in this election to finally turn the page on a decade of politics driven by fear and division. We are done with that. We're done.
Issues such as immigration, economy, reproductive rights are taking center stage in every campaign message.
Treat our whole country like garbage, with open borders, with all of the horrible things they've done to hurt our country, inflation that should have never happened, allowing Russia to go into Ukraine, October 7th, and Israel. All of these things would have never happened if you had a different president.
I caught up with a Ghanaian based in Virginia who tells me that for him, he's very worried about immigration-related issues and the messages candidates have.
Was in the ex-Trump administration, their sentiments on immigration, deporting people, separating families. You have kids who up to now haven't seen their parents before, all manner of, hard stance and, for me, I feel like their policies as far as immigration is concerned is one of the most terrible immigration policies.
One of the most terrible immigration policies. You had there an African immigrant, and I told you we do have in the studio with us Professor Enoch Enchi. He is an international relations and governance expert. Good afternoon to you, Prof. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Beatrice. I hope everything's fine.
Wonderful. How about you? Thank you for asking.
You can't complain. Nobody will listen.
Anyway, I know you've lived in the U.S. for long. Over 20 years, and you've been here for some time. But really, this time around, it looks like this very election is on policies, and Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have diverging policies or views. For you, how do you understand the policies of these two candidates, one of which may win this year's general election?
Every election in the U.S. has been based on policies, and if you look at the records, Democrats go for values, and then Republicans go for policies. But every time there's an election, values trumps over policies. So we have to watch that. Now, the biggest issue is going to be the security of the people, which is gun controls. Because we've seen a lot of high school students picking guns, going to schools, and then shooting here and there. So the National Rifle Association has been talking about, why don't we have teachers also having guns? So instead of cutting guns, access in the hands of these kids, they are trying to sell more so that everybody will have guns. And they are lobbying, which is one of the biggest issues that policies talks about. So Democrats are talking about, if you need a gun, you have to go through background check before you can have access to guns. And then we talk about immigration, which is the biggest issue. Obama could not solve it. Obama's time we had 11.5 million illegal immigrants. That was the population of Belgium, the entire population of Belgium, who were illegal immigrants, and they thought they were going to get amnesty. Obama was not able to do it. He spent most of his time on the LGBT thing, and now that is still lingering. It's a big issue there. Most people who went to America legally are complaining that Mexicans, some Africans have come there illegally, and then they are using food stamps and daycare vouchers to support these people who are not working, and they are working to pay for these guys. So that means that illegal immigrants have their hands in every American pocket.
But that is also affecting the economy, which is one of the main things they are talking about as
Trump,
well.
during his time, said that he was going to build a wall, and it's going to be a big wall. What happened? He couldn't build it. And then that issue is still lingering. So 4 years he could not handle that immigration issue. Then we have the pro-life, pro-choice of abortion issues, the right of a woman to keep the baby or abort the baby if their life is at risk. That is also one of the issues. Then foreign policies about the Ukraine-Russian war, the Israeli-Gaza war, and that means that they are looking for a leader who is going to be more powerful and get respect all over the world. So these are the thorny issues that is going to be.
And briefly, Prof, before you go, I'm sorry, we're almost running out of time. Why is this race so close?
It's close because, and Kamala Harris has really done well, because if you look at just 3 months ago, that Joe Biden gave up due to old age and said that you have to run. And she has done so much well that even in adverts money spent, she has overspent Trump by $300 million. So you can see that she's really doing well. If you look at the polls, CNN have shown this morning that by popular votes, she will win by 51%, and Trump will get 47%. But we are going for electoral votes, not
That's
popular
the challenge,
votes.
yes.
So we see whatever happens. But Americans will decide in the end.
Americans will decide in the end. Thank you so much, Professor Enoch Entry, International Relations and Governance Expert, for joining us in studio.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Have a great day.
You too. 7. You want to stay glued to all our channels because we'll be bringing you all the updates on the U.S. elections. And that's it for the news here on 3FM 92.7. Manu Afful is standing by with the latest in business. Have a good afternoon and log on to 3news.com for more news. My name is Beatrice Adu.
Gets busy on this frequency. 92.7 3FM.
Follow us on social media. Twitter at 3FM927. Facebook at 3FM927. And also on 3news.com.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, Association of Ghana Industries urges government to leverage Africa Continental Free Trade Area for sustainable employment.
What will it take for enterprises to increase their capacity to be able to export to other countries? We are part of the Continental Free Trade Agreement, and AGI is key in this whole arrangement.
Also, Bank of Ghana urges finance leaders to navigate through unprecedented global crisis.
The problems that the world is challenged with right now, a lot can be traced, to the doorsteps of leadership, and CFOs are part of leadership. But that sort of leadership, we want to understand that ought to be strategic.
My name is Manu. Afful will bring you details of these and more shortly. Please stay. Now on to the details. And cocoa farmers in Ghana are currently withholding their beans, hoping for a price increase. This strategic move comes as global cocoa market grapples with the impact of last year's poor harvest. There's more in the following 3 Business News Desk report. The hoarding trend has been confirmed by farmers, buyers and officials from the state regulator, Cocoa Board. While the exact scale of the stockpiling remains unclear, it is evident that farmers are taking advantage of recent government statements. Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia recently hinted at a potential price increase for cocoa farmers. Although he later clarified his remarks, many farmers remain optimistic about a price hike, particularly those in major cocoa growing areas. Farmers hoping to capitalize on higher prices have been reluctant to sell their beans. This has slowed cocoa purchases in October, impacting the market. Ghana has been grappling with cocoa bean smuggling and declining output. To address these challenges, the government increased the fixed farm gate price for the 2024-25 season by 45%. The country fixed its prices at 48,000 cedis, or just under $3,000 per metric ton for the 2024-25 season, which opened in September. However, this increase has not been sufficient to deter hoarding. The weather conditions in West Africa, a key cocoa producing region, remain uncertain. While some areas like Ivory Coast and Ghana have experienced favorable weather, others like Cameroon and Nigeria are facing challenges from diseases like blackpot. That was a 3 Business News Desk report on farmers hoarding cocoa beans in anticipation of a price hike. Away from that, finance leaders are now facing what the Bank of Ghana's second deputy governor, Beatrice Adu, calls a polycrisis, a world where crises like pandemics, economic shocks, and geopolitical tensions hit all at once. Speaking at the CFO and Future of Finance Summit 2024, organized by Evoke Impact in Accra, she urged CFOs to guide their organizations through these unpredictable times, highlighting the need for resilience and forward thinking as businesses navigate today's non-stop pressures.
We live in an era where we need to get used to multiple crises at the same time, right? Not just, and some of these crises are one-in-a-lifetime crises that are playing out before our eyes, like a pandemic that happens 1 in 100 years. And then you think that's enough for maybe another 10 years, but no. On the heels of that, you have geopolitical crises and then on and on and on. And so we're being challenged to think broadly about how crises and risk and uncertainty have become the new normal. And therefore, how do we navigate all of these at the macro level, at the micro level, and at the meta levels? And the CFO is somehow at the heart of all of these, right? The CFOs, finance leaders, you stand at the intersection of change, and you are expected to help navigate all of these crosswinds and headwinds while keeping organizations safe and sound and well managed and surviving and thriving into the future.
That was Second Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Beatrice Adu. Meanwhile, Chief Executive of Evoke Impact, William Atum Amarlai, emphasized the necessity of fostering collaboration and innovation strategies among finance leaders to effectively respond to the complex challenges.
The problems that the world is challenged with right now, a lot can be traced, to the doorsteps of leadership, and CFOs are part of leadership. But that sort of leadership, we want to understand that ought to be strategic, right? So that, like you've heard in the conversations before, CFO's role was to basically do the bookkeeping and all of that, But now they're having to be partners of the organization. So I'm very sure that the organization where you come from, you'll have a finance, team or leadership that ensures that innovation thrives. At the same time, there's financial acumen. So we as Evoke Impact, we basically lay the conversation around some of these key issues, okay, that affect professional development, okay. And so when you find that we have brought together CFO, just like we do in other industry verticals, it is to provide a platform for them to engage, okay, and to look at some of the critical issues that affect their profession, okay, which largely would also contribute to our economic well-being as a country.
Chief Executive of Evoke Impact, William Adom Amarlai there. Now, the Association of Ghana Industries is calling on governments to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive under the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. This move aims to generate sustainable employment opportunities in the country. According to CEO of AGI, Chuma Kwabwa, governments must provide the necessary support to make Ghanaian industries competitive and prosperous.
What will it take for enterprises to increase their capacity to be able to export to other countries? We are part of the Continental Free Trade Agreement, and AGI is key in this whole arrangement. We are partnering Ghana Export Promotion Authority, and as we speak now, established an export trade house in Kenya, and we are thinking of replicating it in other countries. In all this, we want the political parties to support. It should be the vision of every government to support export development, and we are a key player in that. We are beneficiary because our members produce the products for exports, and therefore, if it is working well, it works well for the country, it works well for the companies. I think that every government worth its salt would like to implement policies that support industrial development and job creation. Job creation, because the biggest challenge we have in the country is jobs for our teeming youth.
That was CEO of AGI, Seth Chuma Kwabwa, indicating Ghana can unlock its economic potential, create sustainable employment opportunities, and improve the lives of its citizens through the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Before we go, development in Ghana is set to become more targeted from 2025 as the National Development Planning Commission works on a medium-term national development plan. This new strategy will allow the government to design budgets based on specific community needs, aiming to empower local areas and enhance regional planning.
Principal objective of that plan is to inform the national budgeting process. What it then means is that by July next year, 2025, all these things will have to be ready and inform the Ministry of Finance. We do it together with them in the budgeting processes. Now, it's indicative. It informs them. So technically, if we do it well, we can tell, for example, all the educational needs of, say, a district or a region like Greater Accra. We'll do for all the regions, all the agricultural needs. Now, that would then give an indication to Ministry of Finance. They can say, okay, if you put it together, maybe about 10% of our resources should go into energy, 5% should go into maybe trade, and so on. So we are getting near accuracy rather than, sitting down and just on top of our head, let's put 5% here. So
you heard the voice of Acting Director General of the NDPC there. Well, that's it for Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more stories, can you log on to our website? It's www.3news.com. My name is Manu. Afful. Stay tuned. Urban Blend continues.